We're going to be talking for the next little while about delivering personalised content discovery experiences. I think it kind of helps us find what's on television, how it can be used with churn and other retention strategies, and also, of course, how operators can manage to show everything they've got these days, which is increasingly complicated with various apps we see on some of the platforms alongside the linear channels. Now, to discuss all of this with me, I've got Suzanne Markels, who is the Senior Manager of Innovation at Liberty Global. Alongside her, we have Steve Locke, the Senior Director of Video Platforms at Cinemedia, and Luka Borzata, Head of Product Management at Telekom Slovenia. Welcome everyone. I wonder if I can start by asking Suzanne and then Luka about the...
Thank you, Victor. Morning everyone.
that you have in place at the moment.
I'm having this one.
As a company the size of Liberty Global, according to where you go, you get something slightly different. Tell me what your best box does. Best box.
This is what
on behalf of the data ecosystem, I would like
we
to...
have best boxes. Let's start with
Okay, your bestest box then.
now, we have one entertainment platform and a little bit of different hardware, but our best content discovery offering is a combination of the standard tools like continue watching, watch list, things like that. But at the heart of our content discovery strategy, we have our personal homepage. So, and that is the page where people can either with their individual profile or with a shared profile find all the aggregated preferences, content, all content types that they are interested in. They get personalized promotions, they can access from there to their latest recordings, etc. We also then have integrated their most recent apps, their most favorite apps. So we try to cover across all content types the preferences from users.
How personalised is it as far as, obviously we're used to the favourite channel concept? Can you say move your favourite app so that it's always first, or maybe it knows because you're using it so often and puts it there for you?
Yeah, we do it for you. Based upon your viewing behavior, it's not different with apps than with other content. We know what you use most, what is most relevant for you, so we have that prioritized within the app's swimming lane. And hopefully soon we will go one step further. If there are still people out there that only watch linear TV and they don't want to have the swimming lane with apps, and they don't want a swimming lane that has access to radio channels, so we will move those swimming lanes down, and the ones that are your interest, they will be moved up. So the homepage is completely automated based upon your preferences.
Well, that's interesting. I can imagine, it's a generalisation of course, but an older audience is probably familiar with the linear channels, so that would end up towards the top, and obviously younger audiences, the apps would find themselves in pole position there.
Yeah, that's quite different indeed. Yeah.
And the visual representation of things, that's often important, either be it a familiar channel logo or one of the stars of their shows.
Well, we grab every 10 seconds we grab the most relevant screen from something that is live being broadcasted, or we take the best screen from a movie, an on-demand movie that we're promoting. So yes, it's all visualized, except our voice search, our search, but that's it, the plan.
Okay, that sounds good. Luka, how's it being done on Telekom Slovenia?
Does it work?
I hope so.
So at Telekom Slovenia we launched in 2018 the platform Neon, which was mainly focused on voice recognition. First it was done with Google, then we developed the solution which had better results than Google. And now in 3 months, 94% of our users that are on Neon are actually using voice, because it's working perfectly in Slovenian and also in English. The other languages are not supported because that's our market. But otherwise, beside the voice, it's also that there are other ways how to get the content. We have like 4 different ways. Of course, there's some shortcuts. Related content, so let's say if you search for, I don't know, Brad Pitt movie, then you get some other Brad Pitt movies and movies that have this, let's say, the same genre and stuff. So by voice search, I mean you can search for the titles, genres, number of channels, name of channels, you name it. So this is actually a journey that the customer can go through our platform, and let's say that we also do some ingestions from SVOD platforms like HBO. So the customer, let's say, going through the journey and find the content that is suitable for him.
And visually, do you sort of do the kind of thing that Suzanne was telling us about in terms of reordering things, the personalisation? How do you tackle that?
We have this Encanto recommendation system that is actually doing the personal recommendations. So let's say the sort order of content is different for a different audience. And there are also some other tweaks, like we have like a live metric of TV channels, so you can see what others are watching, because it's not just to have personal content, but also you're maybe a little bit interested what others are watching, and you need to get an idea, let's say, because there is a lot of content, too much content, too many platforms, and probably sometimes you still don't know what to watch. So.
Yeah. How much of this have you been able to do within Telekom Slovenia yourself, as opposed to Deutsche Telekom saying, here we are, this is what we've got, would you like to use this, please?
Well, with voice, I think we are probably one of the best in the world, I think. Because especially if you consider that Slovenian language is spoken only by 2 million people, then I think that if 94% of users are using it, then you know that you have a great product. And yeah, I don't know, if compared to others, what we have here, we are a little bit small market, we have lack of, let's say, streaming services, but we still have some, and we try to do this ingest of all the streaming so that, let's say, I don't want to choose between 10 apps and find something. I just need to get some personal content for me. So.
Okay. Steve, is there some kind of best practice, if you like, for what operators should be putting in? Or is it, as Luca suggests, you find something within your local market in the way that Luca has, say, done with the voice search?
Yeah, I think it's difficult to say there's best practice, because I think it will be driven by the local needs of operators and their customers in their markets. As you're saying, the market has not so many apps in it, so the need for sort of aggregation and those depths may be different, as opposed to the market where Lucas is the market in different areas will have different demands. But I think there's underlying capabilities that apply across a number of those markets. So people are all moving towards wanting to do levels of personalisation and levels of recommendation and levels of some level of aggregation that may be aggregating from app providers coming in. It may be looking to sort out actually aggregation and enhancing of metadata and experience and user. I think that need for content discovery in some ways is becoming a much more of a differentiator than maybe it used to be. As the competition becomes harder, that content discovery becomes more critical, unique, key identifier in that sense of uniqueness.
And it's a tricky one. I think there's on Netflix. I know there's whole swathes of content out there because I'm writing about it, but I'm never getting that recommended to me. And I kind of think sometimes, well, if I read a story on the internet, say, from a newspaper, I'm probably just going to go for the stories I'm interested in. If I still have the paper, I can flick through and spy something I might not have seen otherwise, which then turns out I'm interested in. How do you then replicate that within the TV environment and content discovery? Without going through. Well, I see Suzanne's itching, but I always both go into this one.
I'm sure you'll have an opinion. Well, that's content discovery, right? I mean, personalization is fine, but if you're not careful, you stay always in the same bubble. That's the whole thing. You can also on those news apps, you can personalize your homepage. I never do that. I don't want that because I want to make sure I don't miss anything. So, but that's also where the recommendation engine can play quite an important role. I don't know if you agree with me on that.
Yeah, I think, if you look at discovery, there's ways that consumers go about discovery. There's search, where you know what you want to watch and you're seeing if it exists there. And that's one way of discovery. There's also discovering that I don't know what I want to watch, but I know the style I want to watch. And, so there's either I want to watch a particular actor or I want to watch a sort of genre. So the content discovery element of personalisation takes a number of sort of different ways for how you go about enhancing content discovery. It's not as simple as because you watch action films, you should always watch action films forevermore. That's where the sort of smartness of the technology, understanding the nuances between those areas and how you start your journey. A lot of customers do start their journey from what appeared in those very front swim lanes. That's often, and that has been promoted in a number of companies, but promoted into that top swim lanes because it is seen as what might be. But that,
Is that also sometimes what the company has spent a heck of a load of money on, and they really do want the people to watch it to justify that investment?
I think there'll always be a balance between the commercial interest of an asset and the consumer demand for what you want to service them on. There's always a sensitive trade-off between forcing a piece of content, which will be hero content being promoted a lot.
I'm trying to think, was it the Knives Out mystery over Christmas on Netflix, which promoted the hell out of it? Everybody watched it, and everybody agreed it was rubbish.
So yeah, I think it plays on there'd be hero content, but there also underlying that hero content be recommendations coming through that are more personalised in that sense.
I think it's also important that we don't forget that next to all those content discovery tools, a personal homepage, there's still a need for a library that shows you in a very structured way what is the content that you have. You can select your own genre, you can click through it. It's
You
still
kind of need multiple entry points into everything, really, don't you?
Absolutely.
The traditional index, almost encyclopedia-like at the back of the book, as it were, but then also the things with said, which highlight individual pieces of content.
Yeah, one time you're tired, you simply want to lean back and take your most important content discovery device, which is your remote control, and zap from channel 1 to 10 and back again. And at the other moment, you know exactly what you want to watch, and you have a date night, you want to watch a certain movie together. So there's different use cases, and they need different
I guess content discovery, at least not at the moment, it doesn't know that, but maybe it will soon.
I think here's a big opportunity for AI and let's say ChatGPT with not just going through metadata, but also through let's say streaming and let's say recognize some scenes from the movies and get the mood and recommend let's say via my watching habits what kind of scenes I'm let's say watching more, and then maybe let's say recommending me the same looking or the same look and feel scenes. So I think that here is something that probably could happen but let's say in a few years, but as we see now, maybe even earlier than we expected. So.
It's a bit scary, doesn't it? Suzanne mentioned the concept of what you might want to watch on a date night. You can imagine how AI works out that the purchase of a bottle of wine from the supermarket on a particular day means that we now need to show a particular genre of film.
Well, if you combine it with smart home features, that is exactly what you say. You say it's movie night, and it automatically closes the curtains and turns on your TV, and yeah, it would be great.
I do kind of like that as an idea.
But still, ChatGPT cannot drink this wine in the supermarket, so this may be a big difference. At the end, there is still human, so I think that we shouldn't be worried, but we should, let's say, use all this power that this AI has. Probably, hopefully, it stays more open source, especially for us who are smaller. But I think this is definitely one of the ways to the future.
Can I add something to that?
Of course.
Because we are actually working on a project that is kind of combining voice, which is the most effortless way of getting to content, and combine that with one step further into AI. We try to come to a content discovery butler. And you know, a butler knows what you want before you want it. So, that's what we are looking for. Can we, based upon your voice, know who you are, with whom you are, in which mood you are? And it's definitely going to be a challenge. But then we will come to a version of our UI that is going to be dynamic, based upon what you ask us. You're going to have a conversation with your TV.
So the suggestion there is if I say, what's on TV tonight? I get something different to what's on TV tonight.
That's the idea. And you will still get different, because we can always be wrong, and especially AI can be very wrong. So you will still get different suggestions, but yeah.
I guess what worries me with that kind of scenario is if I'm feeling down, different content might cheer me up to what cheers you up if you're feeling a bit miserable. And then the AI will presumably gradually learn over time how to fix the mood.
Yeah, well, fix the mood, but
Or try to
maybe
anyway.
you don't want to fix the mood. But yeah, indeed, what your need is different than my need. And if we are together, then our need is different again.
It adds different dynamic, doesn't it? The personalisation thing. Tell me about user profiles a little bit, Suzanne, because you mentioned you have those available. Do people use them? There's always the danger that one person is sitting down watching television and then they're joined by some others, and that sort of ruins the whole profile concept. Or you use the one of the last person to watch the TV and ruin their recommendations.
Yeah, that's why at this moment when we introduce individual profiles, we use it in a very, very, how do you say that? Well, the step one, baby step. And we still had people using their normal profile or their shared profile, but only if you really wanted to have an individual user profile, you could set one up. And those profiles, the added value was still limited. You would have your personal watch list, personal recommendations. And I think that's.
And do you know what proportion of people choose to do that?
It differs per country, but max 20% of the country at this moment use individual user profiles for our boxes.
That doesn't feel too many.
No. And as we are in the mass media, that's not what is sufficient for us. What we're currently looking at is how can we increase the added value of those profiles, and can we make it, at this moment you have to switch profiles by clicking on a knob at the side of your remote control.
Okay.
That's taking me too much effort. That's not how you want it, and that's why I'm so excited about voice and what voice can bring us and can help there, because that is effortless. And we need to bring, people don't have to think about, oh, now I'm this profile, oh, now I'm that profile. So I think it's good that we introduce them, we learn a lot from them, but it's definitely not the right
I
way.
guess also, once the profile has been entered, the user has to see enough differentiation to make it worth their while to see a selection of content that is tailored for them as opposed to just general stuff, however good it is.
That's very true. So that's why the combination of the personal homepage and the user profile is very important.
Steve, I guess to deal with this, you do need a certain level of personalisation to help people navigate.
I think it varies on the whether it's an operator or whether it's an app provider in that sense. I think we see from the customers we deploy multi-user profile capabilities to, that at the operator level you see the usage isn't quite so high, but also because the insistence of it is slightly less. And whereas if you look at the app providers that we provide services to, their first screen, you have no choice but to choose a profile and to go somewhere. Now what you see is that some customers do not want to set up a profile, so they've only got one, and that's the way they run their service. But I think you're seeing it demographically changes. Younger users are setting up profiles and running those profiles because they do want their experience. So I think it varies on operators in countries, and it varies on demographic about the usage and the adoption of profile. And I think the need, therefore, then for that profile to add value and to be of value becomes more key, and that's where personalisation in it. I agree. Search voice is a growing need. We have a number of customers that are deployed search in different parts of the world, both from a what can I watch to also can I change the channel, can I turn the volume up? Those commands as well as control as well as commands in terms of voice. And that capability is growing very much. As you say, you've deployed, as you say, world class for language is often one of the big difficulties, and the big operators, the big Alexas and Googles and that don't always cover all of the languages around the world. They're very good in the US and the West, etc. But you go out to other regions, they don't necessarily carry the language, and that's a challenge as we go into voice of dealing with the multiple languages in different parts of the world. But I think on the multi-user profiles you see it vary depending on how insistent an operator may be that profile should be used.
Just out of interest, Luca, did you use the profile system at all?
We have them, but we don't use them.
Interesting.
No, it's as you mentioned, definitely it's connected with the demographic, because let's say the classical telco has, let's say, a large amount of pretty basic users, and if you, let's say, push them to use profiles, let's say that the first thing when going to the platform would be always choosing the profile could be a little bit problem for let's say older people. So that's why we leave it in the, let's say, in the back, so people could choose it if they want, but they don't. So probably I think that for telcos the right way, I think the only correct way would be to do some kind of automatic recognition who is watching, maybe via, let's say, presence of mobile handsets in the same room, maybe through some sniffing via Wi-Fi or something, and maybe also by listening of the voice, and let's say recognizing different person in the room. So
I guess the other side of this, the personalisation thing and the recommendation thing, is that you have the visibility of what people are watching, and the ability then to use those metrics to promote content elsewhere.
Well, yeah, I agree. I think that we have, let's say, opportunity to promote content. Of course, we also have, let's say, obligation maybe to promote some content, with, let's say, due to some contract or stuff. But otherwise, still, maybe there is also big opportunity to actually give the good content discovery and, let's say, let people choose. So I think this is something that telcos should think about.
Suzanne, how can we use content discovery and recommendations to improve customer retention? Because I guess the recommendations have to be good, otherwise people say, oh, I don't want to watch any of this.
Yeah, I think content discovery can only do so much. So it's for us as Liberty Global, it's one of the 3 important pillars in churn reduction. The others is the proposition itself, the offering, the price. The content that you have on the platform. Now we are definitely investing in getting more and more content OTT players on the platform and integrating them as deep as possible. And then indeed try to have the best state-of-the-art content discovery. And if you talk about churn reduction, you also talk about loyalty. So one of the content discovery features that we are currently building together with one of the sponsors here, Media Distillery, is what we call follow a topic or follow a sport, which gives the people, sports fans, the possibility to say, this is my favorite team, my favorite athlete, You can find it in our content and all our content, also in the app integrated content. But you can also follow it. You can
So this is
subscribe
whole
to it.
shows or little clips?
Both.
Okay.
Both. And you can then, whenever there's new content coming on the platform, it will be on your personal homepage. And because of this, this is typically a loyalty thing in the content discovery that we believe has quite a big value.
So this could be, I don't know, a sportsman. One day they could be competing in an athletics event. The next, a few days later, they might be on a chat show, perhaps talking about it. And so this would
also in talk
follow
shows.
through.
Yeah. So far, the challenge was that with metadata that we are buying from Gracenote, that we can find all the shows that we have the metadata for, but we cannot find what the discussion topics are in a talk show. So that's why our partner comes in, and that's where we are now hoping we can turn the needle.
Worth having a conversation with Media Distillery, doing one of our upcoming coffee break, all of our exhibitors really for that matter. Luca, you have yours is you're calling the Neo platform. What are the sort of the top features, if you like, of AND content discovery for it?
Well, as I mentioned, of course this voice recognition is maybe one thing that is, let's say, the number one, because we're still the only real or let's say only quality voice solution on the market. There's also, we have integrated smart home, which is also some nice feature. It's a difficult area because it's, let's say, still a relatively new thing in Slovenia, but we have integrated Zigbee and stuff into our set-top box.
You think you're obviously making moves in that direction. The smart home is one of these things that operators have for a long time tried to claim a little piece of, and I'm just wondering if the likes of Alexa and Google and to a certain extent Apple haven't just got there first.
Well, smart home is definitely a direction. It just depends on how to deal with it, because let's say by integrating everything into a set-top box, then you'll have to change the software all the time, and that comes with a cost. So maybe there is also maybe one, let's say, opportunity for someone to become, let's say, some aggregator of all different smart home ecosystems, and then probably maybe, let's say, in the future to put this aggregator on your platform, so you wouldn't have to deal with these software issues with different, let's say, cameras and stuff. So I think that it's still something that should be considered. It's not, but otherwise, let's say the sales numbers or something, it's not that significant, or usage is not that, let's say, it's not voice. So it still would be, let's say, something different, as otherwise I think it's pretty much the same.
Steve, the quality of the technology which is in place, really from end to end. One level, it's the difference that we used to sort of say between like a Zapper box and the kind of more sophisticated offering that the big operators, Sky, Canal Plus, might have offered. But I guess it kind of goes from end to end. The box is the visualization of it, but all the way through, you've got other elements of the chain which
yes, and Susan touched on it just there around, we could talk about content discovery. It's only good as the content you hold to be discovered. And to discover that content, you then also need, it may not always be your content that's being discovered. So maybe other operators you have on your platform, etc. As we saw the sort of need and want about content discovery, while we invested in buying a company that was focused around aggregation and recommendations in the business of Utelli, which we purchased from, which was based in Amsterdam. And they're bringing capability around how you control that metadata, deal with duplication, deal with localization of that metadata, and how you bring it from multiple sources and combine it. And allowing those hooks, as you were talking about, Susan, for someone who might be on a chat show, who might be on a star, who might be doing a music track or whatever that might be, bringing that metadata together to present what to a consumer can look like a very simple experience. And I think there's technology out there in terms of what we can offer of bringing that user experience together. I think the challenges necessarily aren't in the technology. There is lots of technology available that we can bring a very strong content discovery experience, but some of the challenges will therefore sit in probably the commercial ability to execute those deals with the operators, and also the regulation that operate in those markets. And so the technology needs to be able to accommodate and deal with commercial demands on it and sort of regulatory demands on it, as opposed, because you can do many things technology-wise that we may not be allowed commercially or legally to do in that sense. So it needs to be able to, and we're very cognizant of the need that a platform must be able to recognise and deal with commercial business rules that need to be placed on it. In that sense.
You bring us onto an interesting area, really, because operators have, over the past few years, brought in an increasing number of apps with a large number of fairly high-profile providers, and many of them do have the influence to say, you can't really do that with my content or present it in that way, which presents a number of challenges for the operators. So how do you sort of manage this minefield?
As good as it gets. Yeah, there are some things you can't resolve. So what we try to do is create a customer journey that is as good as possible for the user and harmonize the way that people have to log in on the various apps. What is most important for us to make this from a customer from a content discovery perspective as good as possible is to get the metadata from those apps and to have that integrated. Most apps are happy to do that because they do see the added value of their content in a bigger library. There are some, and we're not going to mention any names, some who are not cooperating with us. But for example, a very big one.
But they're happy to do a deal with you to get their content there. It's just once it's there, they're less useful then.
Yeah, but I do want to mention that, for example, Amazon Prime, who's quite big, is willing to do that, to give us the metadata and to have integrated and have a very good user experience, where we even can integrate their content that people are watching into our continue watching area. So, and that's the type of content discovery we want to have. But yes, you're right, it's a challenge.
Very, very much so. Have you come? You must have had similar issues, I would have thought, Luke. Is it the international guys who are normally the awkward ones, or do you have problems with local players?
We are really good, let's say, cooperation with HBO and Discovery, but Netflix is avoiding us because we are too small. We would need, let's say, 300,000 users to have them, and unfortunately no one in Slovenia has 300,000 users. So, of course, we would like to add these streaming services onto our platform. This would be let's say, the step one. But the step two would definitely be to ingest the content, the premium content from all this platform and put it somewhere in the basket on our platform. We are already doing this with HBO and Voil, which is a local streaming service. And this actually is, for the customer, this is really great, because if you, let's say, if you want to watch the movie, you want to watch the movie. You don't want to stream through or, let's say, discover through 10 different platforms for the movies. And there is also one thing that, let's say, that the same movie is on a few platforms, so it's a little bit issue which one to show. Let's say, the free movie, which is on live, or one that is an SVOD, which you have to order first, or maybe even in a VOD. So this is, you need to have some, internal rules to show a little bit of paid and a little bit of something that the customer already has paid for. So it's
It feels like one of those things where you see at conferences and exhibitions where somebody demonstrates the system which tells you where the movie is available for 10 euros, where it's available for 8, and where you can watch it with adverts. And I'm not entirely sure if I was the person at the company selling 10 euros, I'd want to have that as part of my business rules to allow it particularly.
And that's what we see that often in terms of the customers we talk to about aggregation. The capability is there, and there is a need for localization. There's a need for the, as you say, the duplication across the list of operators up there. There's a lot of duplication in the back catalogues across those operators.
Like Downton Abbey is on every streaming platform there is. It's amazing.
So then there's a need from that to apply the business rules, and having the capability to easily apply those is really quite key. And I think it will be a commercial decision as to whether it's the free offering or the paid offering, under what commercial terms have been signed with an operator about where, and with an app provider, about which content must be displayed when. And as you say, the operator at the top of the list on the app provider on the top of the list of that, is not so willing to work with operators. It sees it has its own content and a strength to partner through. Others, as you say, I think Amazon Prime, we've seen also Amazon Prime with our customers is more willing to work, and they see the advantage.
Is that because they had to push themselves forward against others? Or?
I think they also see the advantage of one of the things is you're either saying, I'll go to the app and I know I want to watch something on Netflix, and therefore I'm going to watch something on Netflix or whatever the app is. But if you want to be able to understand what's on Amazon Prime, as you say, and you can see it within your viewing experience, play out will probably always be in the individual's provider, in the individual app provider. But how you discover in that, unless you know I want to watch it, that's what the content discovery of the operator is trying to break down. You're trying to bring that content up, allow it to be discovered, which is advantageous to the app provider as well as to the operator in that sense. And that's where the aggregation services we're offering are trying to break that, bring that barrier down, but it's more of a commercial one where the rules need. I'm sure you've got a comment there in that sense.
Yeah, well, what we see is that users in principle start by looking at what's on TV. And what's on TV is now a combination of all the content that we can offer, including the OTT app content. And if you're not part of that what's on TV overview, then you're missing that first step that you, so only if people then would directly go to your app, you would, would be chosen.
You have to have the external advertising and promotion of it. They're not doing a deal or have an arrangement with you or any other operator for that matter to promote themselves. They
need to promote
have to
themselves
promote somewhere because otherwise they'll get lost, won't they?
Directly to the customer, yeah.
I guess it's why you notice with the big platforms, they'll send a press release to journalists like me saying how many thousands of hours of content they've got. But when you look at the marketing activities, they're normally only promoting 2 or 3 shows at a time, which obviously they're the key ones, and hoping that they will reel people in to go deeper into the library. I wonder if we could talk a little bit about churn analysis and what can we learn from, I guess, the customer behaviour and the information that operators are able to take a look at there in order to keep them in. Who wants to start? It looks like a Steve starting question. It feels like, particularly with Suzanne pointing to it.
I think if you take why do customers churn? They churn because they either the price is too high for the value they're perceiving. It's basically I don't want what's there for the value. So if you're trying to, it isn't the answer to churn. Don't get me wrong. There's no way the content discovery is a way to resolve churn because there's many other factors involved. But what you're trying to do through the content discovery area is provide engagement that delivers value to the consumer to come back and use again. And therefore, it's a harder decision to give up that experience. And so, differentiation through that, when there's plenty of competition in the market, is where the uniqueness comes. So I think that the content discovery has a role to play in the sort of your churn plan. For if you're delivering a relatively basic experience that's hard to discover things, and I don't have many apps there and those sort of things, people may not perceive the value from that service quite well.
I guess those normal rules apply, isn't it? For as long as pay TV has been around. If you,
yes.
I mentioned yesterday the operator who didn't have Netflix story, and that's a sign.
The points that Susan's made around the work that the Globe was doing, that's to provide differentiation in its experience and the capabilities to do that. And therefore customers will see more value from the operation. So there's a need around what technology is required to allow you to deliver your user experience, and how simple is that, and how engaging is that in that sense. So I think that's where, from a new media viewpoint, it's sort of how can our platforms deliver the capabilities and the offerings that allow our operators to differentiate and provide uniqueness in their experience.
What if sometimes it's the things that the customer doesn't actually notice, little subtle things, and nobody's going to promote them either, but when you add them all together, it provides the better experience that keeps the customer locked in.
Yeah, and consumers don't see this stuff as complex. As we were saying, the search in your country, your consumers wouldn't see it as a really good thing. They wouldn't see it as technology hard, but they would see it as a really valuable thing for their service. But the technology behind it is very smart, of taking languages and digesting them and turning them into commands. But I think the need around differentiation in the content discovery area is quite a battle at the moment between operators about how do they make their experience personalised and the content discovery as unique as they can in that sense.
Yeah, and if I may add to that, I've been talking about our personal homepage, and we build it up in such a way that it starts from left top to right bottom. Left top is as personal as it gets, and then going down and going more to the right, there's more discovery type, the things that you would not expect in there. So, and that's how we try to balance out. So what you do expect is that is very, very personal to me. And and then you go down because you want to make sure you don't miss anything. And that worked pretty well.
Luca, your churn, I think, at Telecom Slovenia is particularly low. So what's are there any secrets you can share, perhaps?
We have a low market share. I'm just kidding. I think that, let's say, beside these luxury products, when you actually it doesn't matter how much do they cost, you just pay for them because you have some status. The product could be successful if it saves you money or time. So, and if you consider that, let's say, time is money, then probably at the end it's always the money. So if your user experience is so good, so smooth that it will actually, let's say, save you a lot of time, give you really good, let's say, instant gratification of your needs, then people will stay loyal to you. What we did, we actually did live testing with our platform and competition platforms, and we had the users from competition platforms and give them some tasks to do. Let's say, find this radio station or something, and we were measuring stuff and seeing and we saw that, let's say, our users found this like 10 times faster than competition. And I think that this actually then reflects in this quality. So you have to also invest in good network coverage and stuff, and I think that with quality then it comes also with lower churn, and of course also this customer life cycle thing. You have to, you have to follow your customer through the customer journey and give him some gratifications, not only let's say some prices, but also let's say some positive vibes or some positive messages for, let's say, birthday or something. So this is something we do, and also what we see is that this cross-sell stuff. So the more, let's say, the more things that customer is related with you is actually the more loyal he stays with you. So if, let's say, if he has just the, let's say, fixed offer, if you sell him the mobile offer, the churn rate is at the moment is significantly lower. And then when you add some other things like, I don't know, mesh Wi-Fi, some loyalty programs, some, let's say, handset over installments and stuff, this will decrease your churn rate. So that's how we manage to keep it really low.
Okay, crystal ball time then in the few moments we have left. What's next in content discovery? This is going to be one of these ones where we go down the line. I'm going to start with you, Luca, and work our way down.
Well, as I mentioned, I think that this AI is the really next big thing that we don't know where, well, we think we know where, in which direction could it go. I can't tell you right now what we are developing and let's say, which way we are thinking, but I think that AI is something that could be really well integrated within the platform.
Okay, Steve.
I think what we're seeing is in content discovery, it won't sit at just video. So I think that content discovery into the movie track, into the buying of the T-shirt for the film, and the full thread right the way through. I think it will grow in terms of, as you take metadata, it doesn't matter whether it's music, whether it's video, whatever that might be. That consolidation more and more, the content discovery is not just about video content discovery in that sense.
Okay.
And I think that video is a starting point, but we're going to add audio, we're going to add gaming, and they also have those cross recommendations. But I also agree with Luca that AI is very promising, very interesting, and we'll be really happy to play around with that and see what it can do for us.
Yeah, it's interesting. Google is in the news today of having sort of upgrade to its search engine through AI to try and level itself up with, it's already ahead of the market share is concerned, obviously, with Bing having their own AI activities at the moment. Good. Well, look, thank you all very much for joining us on the first panel of the day. Thank you.